Step out of the vehicle. Now. The command hit the glass before the knock did, sharp and sudden, like he had already decided she was guilty of something. Ava Johnson didn't move, her hands stayed at 10 and 2, steady on the wheel. Blue and red lights pulsed across her windshield, washing her face in cold color. The hum of passing traffic slowed behind her, drivers watching, curious, cautious. Something about the stop felt off, even from the outside. Officer Ryan Cole leaned closer, his shadow cutting across the interior. His knuckles tapped the window again, harder this time, a rhythm that wasn't patient. License and registration, he said, slower now, like he was talking to someone who needed help understanding simple things. Ava reached for the glove compartment, slow, careful, every movement measured. The faint click of the latch sounded louder than it should have. Her fingers didn't shake, but they didn't rush either. That pause lingered just long enough to bother him. Ryan's jaw tightened, he shifted his stance, one hand resting near his belt, the other hovering near the door frame, watching her like she might do something unpredictable, but she didn't. She handed the documents through a small crack in the window, not opening it all the way, not giving him more than necessary. That detail didn't sit right with him. He glanced at the car interior, quick, scanning. Something about it felt too clean, too quiet, like it didn't match what he expected. "This your car?" he asked, a hint of a smirk pulling at the edge of his mouth. Ava met his eyes for the first time, calm, unreadable. "Yes, officer," she said, her voice even, almost too even. That answer should have ended it, but it didn't. Ryan looked back at the registration, then at her again, like he was waiting for something to slip, something to confirm whatever he had already assumed. The radio on his shoulder crackled softly, a burst of static, then silence. He ignored it, his focus stayed locked on her. "Step out of the vehicle," he repeated, louder now, drawing a glance from a passing driver who slowed just enough to notice. Ava didn't reach for the handle, she didn't argue, she just sat there. Breathing slow, eyes steady. That stillness stretched the moment thinner, tighter, like something was about to snap. Ryan leaned in again, closer this time, his voice dropping, edged with impatience. "You hear me?" Ava's gaze flicked for a split second, not to him, but to the rearview mirror. A small movement, almost nothing, but it was enough to plant a question that hadn't been there before. Ryan followed her glance instinctively, but all he saw was the dark interior behind her. No movement, no sound, just shadows. He frowned, something didn't add up. He reached for the door handle, fingers brushing the metal. The night air felt colder suddenly, like the moment itself had shifted. Then Ava spoke. Again, quieter this time, almost like she was reminding him of something he hadn't realized yet. "You might want to check the back seat," and for the first time since the stop began, Ryan hesitated. Ryan did not like hesitation, not from anyone, especially not from her. His fingers stayed on the handle but he did not pull it yet. The metal felt colder than it should have, like the night had shifted without warning. He glanced at her again, trying to read something in her face, fear, defiance. Anything that made sense, but there was nothing there except calm, and that calm felt wrong. It did not match the flashing lights, the empty road, the tension hanging in the air. It felt placed, like it belonged to a different scene. His radio crackled again, louder this time, a burst of static followed by a voice that cut out too fast to understand. He tapped it once, annoyed, then ignored it again. His focus snapped back to her. "I said step out of the vehicle," he repeated, slower now, each word pressed down harder. Ava did not move, her hands stayed on the wheel, her shoulders relaxed, her breathing steady. She did not even look at him this time, her eyes stayed forward. That detail hit him a second too late. Most people looked at him when he raised his voice, most people reacted, she did not, and that lack of reaction felt louder than anything she could have said. A car passed behind them, its headlights sweeping across the interior. For a brief second the back seat lit up, just a flicker, then darkness again. Ryan narrowed his eyes, something about that quick flash stayed with him, not clear enough to understand, but enough to bother him. He shifted his stance, leaning slightly to the side, trying to catch a better angle through the glass, but the tint and the shadows swallowed everything. "You think this is a joke?" he asked, his tone sharper now, edged with something closer to frustration. Ava finally turned her head, just a little, not fully facing him. Just enough to acknowledge the question without giving it weight. "No, officer," she said quietly, her voice even, almost too controlled. like she had already moved past this moment in her mind. That answer did not satisfy him, it made it worse. He pulled his hand back from the handle for a second, flexing his fingers, then reached again, this time slower, more deliberate, as if the movement itself mattered. The night felt quieter now, even the distant traffic seemed to fade, like the world was holding its breath with him. Another crackle from the radio, this time clearer, a name almost forming before cutting off again. Ryan frowned. That should not have happened. Dispatch did not cut out like that, not here, not tonight. He pressed the button on his shoulder. Dispatch, repeat last transmission, he said, his voice controlled but tighter now. Waiting. Static answered him, nothing else. He released the button slowly. Something was off. Not just with her, but with everything around. This stop, he looked back at the rearview mirror inside the car, catching his own reflection for a split second in the glass, distorted by the angle, then gone. Ava's eyes flicked there again, just for a moment, the same subtle glance as before, like she was checking something, or someone. Ryan followed that glance again, this time more carefully, leaning closer to the window, trying to see past the headrest, trying to catch any movement. But the back seat stayed still, too still, the kind of stillness that did not feel empty, it felt occupied, and that thought landed in his chest before he could stop it. His grip on the door handle tightened, he pulled it halfway, then paused, the hesitation sharper now, more real, like his instincts were catching up to something his eyes had not confirmed yet. Who else is in the car? He asked, his voice lower now, less controlled. Ava did not answer right away, she just looked at him, really looked this time, and there was something new in her eyes. Not fear, not defiance, something steadier, something that did not belong to someone being questioned on the side of a highway. You should open it, she said softly, and for the first time, it sounded less like a suggestion and more like a warning. The radio on his shoulder crackled again, louder than before, and this time, he recognized the voice just as the rear door lock clicked from the inside. The click from the rear door was soft, but it cut through the silence like a signal. Ryan froze with his hand still gripping the front handle, his body halfway between action and hesitation. The sound did not belong to him. And it did not come from Ava, it came from inside. His radio crackled again at the exact same moment, the voice clearer now, sharper, calling his unit number with a tone that did not match routine dispatch. Ryan felt it before he processed it. Something had shifted, something bigger than a traffic stop. He slowly turned his head toward the back seat, not fully, just enough to catch movement in the corner of his eye, a shape leaning forward from the shadows, calm, deliberate, not rushed. The interior light flicked on with a quiet click, and for a second it revealed polished leather, a pressed uniform sleeve, a hand resting steady on the edge of the seat, not tense, not surprised, just waiting. Ryan's grip on the door tightened, then loosened without him noticing. His breath slowed but his chest felt tighter, like the air had thickened. Officer Cole. The voice came from behind Ava, low and controlled, familiar in a way that hit before the name did. Ryan blinked once, then again, trying to align what he was seeing with what he thought he knew. But it did not match, it did not make sense. That voice did not belong in the back of this car, not here, not like this. Ava did not turn around, she did not react, she stayed exactly as she had been, hands on the wheel, eyes forward, like she had been expecting this moment all along. And that detail landed heavier than the voice itself. Ryan swallowed once, dry, his throat tighter than it should have been. He finally turned fully, slower this time, the movement careful, almost reluctant, like completing it would confirm something he was not ready to face. The figure in the back seat leaned slightly forward, enough for the light to catch his face. Sharp lines, composed expression, eyes steady and locked on Ryan, not angry, not raised, just present. And that presence alone shifted the entire scene. Ryan's posture changed without instruction, his shoulders straightened, his hand dropped from the door, not fully, just enough to show the brake in control. The name surfaced in his mind a second too late, Chief Daniel Harris, sitting in the back seat like he had been there the entire time. Like he had watched everything from the moment the lights came on. Ryan's mouth opened slightly, then closed. No words came out. His training told him to speak, to explain, to regain control, but none of that fit the moment anymore. The road behind them felt quieter, the passing cars slower, like the world itself had noticed the shift in authority. The radio crackled again, repeating his unit number, but now it sounded distant, almost irrelevant. the real command was already here, inside the car. Chief Harris did not raise his voice, he did not move abruptly, he simply looked at Ryan, a long, steady look that held more weight than any order. "Do you always conduct stops this way?" he asked, calm, measured, each word placed carefully, not loud, but impossible to ignore. Ryan felt the question before he processed it, not as an accusation, but as something worse, an expectation that had already been broken. His mind raced for a response, something procedural, something neutral, something that could restore balance. But every option felt too small, too late. His eyes flicked to Ava for a split second, searching for something there, anything that might ground him, but she did not look back, she did not move, she did not help him out of this moment, she simply sat there, steady, silent, as if her role had already been completed. That silence stretched again, thicker now, heavier. Ryan shifted his weight slightly, his boots scraping softly against the pavement, the smallest sound in a moment that had gone almost completely still. Chief Harris leaned forward just a fraction more, enough to close the distance without raising tension. His presence filled the space between them without effort, and Ryan felt it, the full weight of it, not through volume, not through force, but through certainty, the kind that did not need to prove itself. "Walk me through what you saw," the chief said quietly, and Ryan realized he did not know where to begin. Ryan opened his mouth, then stopped, the words lining up in his head but refusing to come out in the right order. Procedure, justification, tone, none of it felt stable anymore. The flashing lights painted the side of the car in slow pulses, red, blue, red again, each one stretching the silence longer. "I observed a vehicle drifting slightly over the lane marker," he said finally, his voice controlled but thinner than before, like it had lost something on the way out. Chief Harris did not interrupt, he did not nod, he just listened, still leaning slightly forward, his hands relaxed, resting lightly on his knees. That stillness made Ryan keep talking. "I initiated a standard traffic stop to verify driver condition and documentation," he added. Faster this time, trying to rebuild rhythm, trying to sound like himself again. Ava remained motionless, her reflection steady in the windshield, eyes forward, not engaging, not reacting, like she had stepped out of the exchange entirely. That absence of reaction pulled attention back to Ryan, forcing him to carry the moment alone. The radio crackled again, softer now, like it had faded into the background of something more important. Ryan glanced at it briefly, then away. "And what did you observe when you approached the vehicle?" the chief asked, same calm tone, no edge, no raised voice, but the question landed heavier than the last. Ryan paused, just a beat too long, his mind replaying the approach, the window, the way she had not moved, the way she had looked at him without looking. The driver appeared, uncooperative, he said, choosing the word carefully, but as soon as it left his mouth, it sounded weaker than he expected, like it did not hold under the weight of the moment. Chief Harris tilted his head slightly, not in disagreement, not in agreement, just enough to show he had heard it. "Uncooperative," he repeated quietly, the word hanging there for a second longer than it should have. Ryan felt it, the gap between what he said and what had actually happened. He shifted his weight again, boots scraping softly against the asphalt, the sound small but noticeable in the stillness. She delayed compliance, Ryan added quickly, filling the silence. She did not immediately respond to verbal commands. Ava blinked once, slow, almost thoughtful, but still did not turn, did not speak. That single blink felt like it carried more meaning than anything Ryan had said so far. Chief Harris's eyes moved briefly toward Ava, then back to Ryan, not lingering, just acknowledging. "Did she refuse?" he asked, simple, direct. Ryan hesitated again, the question narrower now, harder to move around. "No," he admitted, the word coming out quieter, "but she did not comply immediately," he repeated, holding on to the phrasing like it might still support him. The chief leaned back slightly, a small shift, but enough to change the angle of the light across his face. "Did she make any threatening movements?" he asked. Ryan shook his head, almost immediately. "No, sir." That answer came easier, cleaner, because it was clear, because it did not require interpretation. The contrast between that and his earlier answers settled into the space between them. The road behind them stayed quiet. A distant car passed, its headlights sweeping across the scene and then gone, like it did not want to stay too long. "Did she provide documentation?" the chief continued. Ryan glanced at the papers still in his hand, Then back at him, "Yes, sir," he said, slower now, more careful. The structure he had relied on was starting to thin, each question narrowing the space he had left. "Then help me understand," Chief Harris said, his voice still even, but now carrying something firmer underneath. "Why you escalated your tone before confirming any violation?" The question did not sound loud, but it landed like a shift in gravity. Ryan felt it settle in his chest, heavier than the others. His mind searched again, faster now, less certain. "I was maintaining control of the stop," he said, the words automatic, trained, but even as he said them, they felt disconnected from what had just unfolded. Ava's fingers adjusted slightly on the steering wheel, a small movement. Barely noticeable, but it drew attention again, grounding the moment in what was actually happening, not what was being explained. Chief Harris watched Ryan for a second longer, not interrupting, not correcting, just allowing the answer to sit, to reveal itself. "Control," he repeated quietly, and something in that repetition made the word feel different, less solid, more exposed. Ryan swallowed, his throat dry again. He realized then that the lights, the road, the car, everything had stayed the same, but the balance had shifted completely, and he was no longer the one directing it. Chief Harris's gaze did not move, steady, patient, waiting without pressure, and that waiting felt harder than any command. Ryan's grip on the documents tightened slightly, then loosened, like he was deciding whether to hold on or let go, and for a brief second, he wondered if he had missed something before he even stepped out of his cruiser. Ryan felt the word control echo in his head longer than it should have, not because of how it sounded, but because of how it did not fit anymore. The lights kept flashing, steady, mechanical, but the moment had shifted into something quieter, something harder to navigate. Chief Harris did not look away, his gaze stayed fixed, not aggressive, not impatient, just present in a way that made every answer matter more. Ryan adjusted his stance again, a small movement, but it felt louder now. Like every detail was being noticed. "You initiated a stop based on a minor lane drift," the chief said, not asking, just restating. Ryan nodded once, quick, "Yes, sir." His voice came out lower this time, more measured, like he was choosing each word more carefully. Ava's reflection in the windshield did not change, her posture remained steady, but there was something different now, something almost settled, like the tension that had surrounded her before was no longer hers to carry. That detail lingered, pulling the focus back to Ryan. The radio crackled again, then fell silent, like it had given up trying to interrupt. Chief Harris shifted slightly in the seat, not forward, not back, just enough to signal a transition. "And at what point did you determine escalation was necessary?" he asked, the question simple, but narrower than the ones before. Ryan paused, not long, but enough to feel it. The moment replayed again in his head, the knock, the delay, the tone he had chosen before anything had actually happened. "When she did not respond immediately," he said, but the answer sounded thinner this time, like it was losing structure as he spoke it. Chief Harris tilted his head slightly again, the same subtle motion, but now it carried more weight. "Not responding immediately is not the same as refusing," he said quietly, not correcting, just placing the distinction where it could not be ignored. Ryan felt it land, that difference, small but sharp. His grip on the documents shifted again, the edges of the paper pressing lightly into his fingers. "No, sir," he said, slower now, acknowledging it without fully stepping into it. Ava exhaled softly, barely audible, but in the stillness it carried, a release of something that had been held too long. Ryan noticed it, and for a second, it pulled his attention away from the chief, back to her, not as a subject of the stop, but as a person sitting there, still, composed, unchanged by the shift happening around her. That realization flickered, then passed, too quickly to settle. "Did you observe any signs of impairment?" the chief continued. Ryan shook his head again. "No, sir." The answer came faster this time, clean. Because it was simple, because it did not need interpretation. The contrast kept building, each clear answer making the earlier ones feel less certain. Chief Harris's gaze moved briefly toward the road ahead, then back to Ryan, like he was placing the entire scene into context. "Not just the exchange, then your decision to escalate was based on perception," he said, not accusing, just stating. Ryan felt the word perception settle in, heavier than expected, because it pointed to something less visible, something harder to defend. "I was ensuring compliance," Ryan replied, but the sentence lacked the firmness it had earlier. like it no longer held its shape under scrutiny. Ava's fingers adjusted again on the wheel, a small shift, deliberate, controlled, like she was grounding herself in something steady. That movement drew Ryan's attention again, and this time it stayed a fraction longer, enough to notice the absence of fear, the absence of tension in her posture, and that absence did not match the tone he had brought into the stop. Chief Harris watched that exchange without interrupting, his silence filling the space where a correction might have been, and somehow that made it harder. "Officer Cole," he said after a moment, his voice still calm, but now carrying a clearer direction. "Procedure is not only about control, it is about judgment." The words did not rise, they did not press, but they settled in a way that could not be dismissed. Ryan nodded once, slower this time, not because he agreed fully, but because he recognized the shift in what was being asked of him, not just to explain, but to reflect. The night air felt cooler against his skin now. Or maybe he was just noticing it for the first time. The lights continued their steady pulse, unchanged, but everything inside that circle of light had moved. "Walk me through your tone," the chief said quietly, and this time, the question did not feel procedural at all. Ryan felt his jaw tighten before he even answered. The question about his tone did not sit like the others. It was not about procedure anymore, it was about something closer, something he could not point to on a report. He shifted his weight again, slower this time, buying a second. "I gave clear commands," he said, but the words felt incomplete as soon as they left his mouth, like they described the action but missed the moment. Chief Harris did not respond right away. He let the silence sit, not empty, but full, forcing the answer to stand on its own. Ava's fingers rested lightly on the wheel, relaxed, not gripping, not tense. That detail stayed in Ryan's peripheral vision longer than it should have, like it was quietly contradicting everything he had assumed earlier. The flashing lights reflected across the rearview mirror, casting brief shadows over the chief's face, but his expression did not change, steady, composed. "Clear is not the same as appropriate," he said calmly, not correcting, just placing another layer on top of the last one. Ryan inhaled slowly. The air felt cooler now, sharper, like the night had finally reached him. "I was maintaining authority," he added, trying again, but this time the words sounded more defensive than controlled, and he heard it, even before anyone else reacted. Ava's eyes shifted slightly in the mirror, not toward Ryan, but toward the chief, just for a second, as if confirming something unspoken, then back forward. That movement was small, almost invisible, but it carried weight. Ryan noticed it, and something about it unsettled him more than the questions. Chief Harris leaned forward just a fraction, not closing distance, just narrowing focus. "Authority does not come from volume," he said quietly, each word landing with precision. "It comes from how you read the moment." Ryan felt that settle deeper, harder to deflect, because it pointed to something he had not considered in real time, the moment itself, not just the steps he followed. He glanced briefly at Ava again, this time more intentionally. Her posture had not changed, her breathing still even, her presence steady. There was no escalation from her side, no trigger that matched the tone he had used, and that gap began to feel larger, harder to ignore. The radio crackled again, softer now, like it was distant from the center of this exchange. Ryan pressed his lips together, thinking, replaying, adjusting. "She hesitated," he said, slower now, more careful, "and I responded to that hesitation." The sentence held more thought than before, but it still felt incomplete. Chief Harris nodded once, a small acknowledgement, not agreement, just recognition. "And what did that hesitation mean to you?" he asked, the question simple, but it cut deeper than the others. Ryan paused longer this time, not out of uncertainty alone, but because the answer was not procedural anymore. It was personal, it was interpretation, it suggested non-compliance. He said finally, but the words came out softer, less certain, as if he was testing them as he spoke. Ava exhaled again, quiet, controlled. The sound barely there, but it marked the moment, like a boundary between what had been assumed and what was being examined. Ryan heard it, and this time he did not look away from it. He let it sit, let it exist alongside his answer. Chief Harris's gaze remained steady, unbroken. "Or," he said calmly, "it could have meant she was being careful." The alternative landed without force, but it changed the shape of everything that came before it. Ryan blinked once, the thought settling in, not replacing his version, but standing beside it, equally possible, equally real. The space between those Two interpretations felt wider than expected, and suddenly harder to bridge. The night felt quieter again, like even the passing cars had pulled back, giving the moment room. Ryan shifted his stance one more time, but now the movement felt less about control and more about grounding himself. I did not consider that, he admitted, the words quieter than anything he had said so far, but clearer, more direct. Ava's reflection did not change, but something about the stillness felt different now. Not tense, not guarded, just present, like she had been seen. Even without speaking, Chief Harris leaned back slightly, the smallest shift, but it signaled something, not an end, not yet, but a change in direction. That is the part one needs you to understand, he said, his voice steady. What you bring into a moment shapes what you think you see. Ryan nodded slowly, this time not out of reflex, but because the weight of that statement had settled in, deeper than the earlier corrections. The lights continued their steady rhythm, unchanged, but the meaning inside them had shifted. The stop was no longer about a lane drift, or even a delay. It had become something else entirely, something quieter, but harder to walk away from, and Ryan realized he had not asked a single question that actually mattered. Ryan stood there with the realization still settling, heavier than anything that had been said out loud. The road stretched quiet in both directions, empty enough to hear the faint hum of his cruiser's engine behind him. The lights kept flashing, steady, unchanged, but they no longer felt like control, they felt like exposure. Chief Harris did not rush the moment, he let it breathe, let Ryan sit inside what he had just admitted. Ava remained still, her posture unchanged, her presence calm in a way that now felt intentional, not passive. That detail stayed with Ryan longer this time, like it was no longer something he could dismiss as coincidence. He cleared his throat slightly, the sound small but necessary. I understand, he said, but the words felt incomplete, like they were only the surface of something deeper he had not fully reached yet. Chief Harris watched him for a second, then nodded once, not as approval, but as acknowledgement. Understanding is a start, he said quietly, but it is not the same as seeing. Ryan felt that difference immediately. Understanding was something he could say, something he could explain, but seeing required something else, something he had not done when he first walked up to the car. He glanced at Ava again, this time holding the look a fraction longer, noticing details he had missed before, the way her hands rested naturally, not rigid, the way her shoulders stayed level, not tense, the way her breathing never changed, even when his tone had. Those details built a different picture, one that did not match the version he had acted on. The radio crackled again, faint, distant, but neither of them reached for it. It no longer mattered. What did you miss? The chief asked, the question simple, but it did not allow for a surface answer. Ryan hesitated, not out of avoidance this time, but because he was actually searching for the truth inside the moment. I assumed intent, he said slowly, each word placed with more care than before. Before I had enough information. The sentence settled between them, quieter than his earlier answers, but more solid. Ava's reflection shifted slightly in the mirror, not a full movement, just enough to mark that something had changed. Ryan noticed it, and this time he did not look away. He let that acknowledgement stay. Chief Harris gave a small nod, almost imperceptible, but it was there. That assumption shaped your tone, he said, not asking, just completing the thought. Ryan nodded again, slower, more certain. Yes, sir. The answer came easier now, not because it was simple, but because it was clear. The tension that had once sat between him and Ava had shifted. It no longer felt like resistance, it felt like distance created by something he had brought into the moment himself. The road behind them stayed quiet. A single car passed in the far lane, its headlights sweeping across and then gone, like it did not want to interrupt what was happening here. Chief Harris leaned back slightly, the movement small but deliberate, signaling another shift, not an end, but a progression. Then the next question matters more, he said, his voice steady. What do you do with that now? Ryan felt that land deeper than anything before, because it was no longer about explaining the past, it was about choosing the next step. He looked down briefly at the document still in his hand, then back up, grounding himself. I adjust, he said, the word simple, but it carried more weight than it sounded. Ava's fingers moved slightly on the wheel again, a subtle shift, like she was feeling the change in the air before it was fully spoken. Ryan took a small breath, steadying himself, then turned his attention fully toward her, not as a subject of a stop, but as the person he had been addressing the entire time. that shift in focus felt different, more direct, more honest. "Ma'am," he began, his voice quieter now, not forced, not raised, just level. "I am going to start this again." The words felt deliberate, like stepping back into the moment with new footing. Ava did not respond right away, but her eyes moved, just slightly, enough to acknowledge the shift without breaking the calm she had held from the beginning. Chief Harris did not interrupt, he remained in the back seat. Present but not intervening, allowing the moment to reset on its own terms. Ryan adjusted his stance once more, but now the movement felt grounded, not reactive. The lights continued to flash, the road remained quiet, but the meaning of the stop had changed completely, and for the first time since he walked up to the car, Ryan realized he was not in control of the moment. He was responsible for it. Ryan kept his eyes on Ava as the words settled between them. The restart was not just procedural. It felt like stepping into a different version of the same moment, one he should have been in from the beginning. The lights still flashed across her windshield, but they no longer felt like pressure, they felt like background, like something that no longer defined the interaction. He took a small breath, steady, controlled. "Ma'am, I am Officer Ryan Cole," he said, his voice even, grounded, no edge, no weight behind it this time. "Just information." Ava turned her head slightly toward him, not fully, just enough to acknowledge. Her eyes met his briefly, calm, steady, nothing in them pushed back, but nothing in them yielded either. That balance stayed in place, and Ryan felt it, the difference between control and presence. "The reason I stopped you is I observed your vehicle drift slightly over the lane marker," he continued, slower now, making sure each word matched what had actually happened, not what he assumed. The sentence felt cleaner, more accurate, but also more exposed, like it left less room to hide behind tone. Ava listened without interrupting, her posture unchanged, her hand still resting naturally on the wheel. That stillness no longer felt like resistance, it felt like attention, and that shift mattered. Ryan noticed it, and it steadied him. The radio on his shoulder remained quiet now, like it had stepped back completely. "Do you understand why I stopped you?" he asked, the question simple, but this time it carried no pressure. Ava nodded once, small, controlled. "Yes," she said, her voice soft but clear, the first full response she had given since the reset, and it landed differently, because now it fit the moment. Ryan felt it, the exchange finally aligning, not forced, not defensive, just direct. A car passed behind them, slower than normal, its headlights sweeping across the scene, then fading into the distance. The road returned to quiet, like it was allowing the moment to continue uninterrupted. "May I see your license and registration, please?" Ryan asked, even though he already held them. The request was part of the reset, part of placing everything back into the right order. Ava's eyes flicked briefly toward the documents in his hand, then back to him, a small detail, but it carried meaning. Ryan noticed it immediately, and for a second, something tightened in his chest, not tension, but recognition. He was holding something he had not acknowledged properly before. "You already have them," she said quietly, not accusing, not challenging, just stating a fact that had been overlooked. The words did not break the moment, but they shifted it again, gently. Ryan glanced down at the papers, then back up, the realization landing fully now, not just that he had them, but that he had moved past that step without anchoring it correctly. "You are right," he said, his voice steady, no hesitation this time. "Thank you." That addition came naturally, not forced, and it changed the tone again, small, but clear. Ava's expression did not change much, but something in her eyes softened, just slightly, like the acknowledgement had reached her, even if she did not show it openly. Chief Harris remained silent in the back seat, watching, not intervening, his presence still shaping the moment without stepping into it. Ryan looked back at the documents, this time actually reading them, not scanning, not assuming, just taking in the information as it was, the name, the address, the details, all grounded, all real, nothing about them matched the assumptions he had carried earlier, and that gap became clearer with each second. "Ms. Johnson," he said, using her name this time, placing it into the exchange. Ava nodded once again, a small acknowledgement, but it carried more weight than before, because now it felt like recognition, not just identification. Ryan held the documents carefully, not tight, not loose, just present, like he was aware of their place in the moment. The lights continued to pulse around them, but they no longer dominated the scene, they framed it, quietly, steadily. is everything okay tonight?" he asked, the question simple, but it came from a different place now, not suspicion, not assumption, just awareness. Ava paused for a second, not long, just enough to consider the question, her fingers adjusted slightly on the wheel. Then settled again. "Yes," she said, calm, measured, but this time there was something else beneath it, something that had not been there before, something closer to being heard. Ryan nodded slowly, taking that in, not pushing further, not forcing more, just allowing the answer to stand. The road remained quiet, the air still, and for the first time since the stop began, the moment felt balanced, not controlled, not tense, just present, and Ryan realized he was finally seeing the scene as it actually was. Not as he had first imagined it. Ryan held the moment where it was, not rushing it forward, not pulling it back, just letting it stay balanced for a second longer than usual. The documents rested lightly in his hand, no longer just items to check, but part of a conversation he had almost skipped. The lights continued their steady rhythm across the road, painting everything in slow pulses. Ava remained still, her posture unchanged, but something about her presence felt different now. Not guarded, not withdrawn, just present in a way that filled the silence. Without tension, that difference stayed with Ryan, anchoring him, reminding him to stay in this version of the moment, not the one he had started with. "Thank you for your patience," he said, the words simple, but deliberate, not part of a script, not automatic. Ava looked at him again, more directly this time, her expression calm, but there was a flicker there, something small, something that acknowledged the shift without making it larger than it needed to be. "I was being careful," she said. Quietly, not defensive, not explaining, just offering a piece of the moment he had missed before. The words landed clean, without weight, but they changed something in how the scene settled. Ryan nodded slowly, taking it in, not interrupting, not redirecting, just letting it exist alongside everything else. The radio remained silent now, like it had stepped out of the exchange completely, leaving only the sound of distant traffic and the soft hum of the cruiser behind him. "I see that now," Ryan replied, his voice steady, and this time it felt true, not something he was trying to reach, but something he had arrived at. Ava's fingers moved slightly again on the steering wheel, a small adjustment, but this time it looked more like release than control. The tension that had once lived in the space between them had shifted entirely, replaced by something quieter, more grounded. Chief Harris watched from the back seat, his presence unchanged, but now it felt less like oversight and more like witness, allowing the moment to unfold without pressure. Ryan glanced down at the documents again, this time confirming what he had already seen, the information consistent, nothing out of place, nothing that required further question. The reason for the stop felt smaller now, more contained, no longer stretched by assumption. "Everything here looks in order," Ryan said, returning the documents carefully through the window, not rushing the motion. Ava reached out and took them, her hand steady, the contact brief, but it marked the completion of something that had been out of alignment before. She placed them back inside without looking away from him for long. That brief exchange carried more meaning than the paperwork itself. Ryan took a small step back from the car, giving space, not out of caution, but out of respect. The difference subtle, but clear. The road behind them remained quiet. A distant pair of headlights approached slowly, then passed, not lingering, the world moving on while this moment settled into its final shape. Ryan rested his hands loosely at his sides, no longer hovering, no longer positioned for control, just present. "You are free to go," he said, the words simple, but this time they felt earned, not automatic. Ava nodded once, a small acknowledgement, but it held something more now, something that reflected the shift that had taken place without needing to name it. She did not start the car immediately. She paused for a second, just enough to let the moment close naturally, not abruptly. Then her hand moved to the ignition, the engine's soft vibration returning, steady, familiar. Ryan stepped back another half step, clearing the space, his eyes still on the car, but not watching in the same way as before, not searching, not expecting, just observing. The lights from his cruiser continued to flash, but now they felt like they belonged to the road again, not the interaction. Ava checked her mirror once, a brief glance, then signaled and began to merge back onto the road, smooth, controlled, the car moving forward without hesitation. Ryan watched as the distance grew, the taillights shrinking into the darkness ahead, and for a second, he stood there, still, letting the moment settle fully, not just as an event, but as something that had changed how he saw the space he worked in. Chief Harris remained in the back seat, silent, but present, and Ryan realized he had not yet turned back to face him. Ryan stood still for a second longer than necessary, the sound of Ava's car fading into the distance, the red glow of her taillights shrinking until it blended into the dark highway, the flashing lights from his cruiser now reflecting off nothing but empty pavement. The moment that had filled the space was gone, but it had not left cleanly, it stayed in the air. Quiet, unfinished, he exhaled slowly, not realizing he had been holding his breath, then turned, finally, toward the back seat. Chief Harris was still there, exactly where he had been, posture unchanged, hands resting calmly, like he had not moved at all since the door first opened. That stillness felt different now, heavier, not because of authority, but because of everything that had just happened in front of him. Ryan took a step closer to the rear door, not rushed, not hesitant, just deliberate. The gravel under his boots shifted slightly, a small sound. In an otherwise quiet scene, he reached for the door handle, then paused, just for a second, not because he needed to, but because something in him had changed. He pulled it open slowly, the interior light came on. Again, soft, controlled. Chief Harris looked up at him, not sharply, not critically, just present. Close the lights, the chief said calmly. Ryan nodded immediately, stepping back to his cruiser, his hand moving to the controls. The red and blue flashes dimmed, then stopped. The road fell into a softer darkness, illuminated only by distant headlights and the faint glow from the dashboard. The shift in lighting changed everything. The scene felt quieter, more grounded, like it had stepped out of a spotlight. Ryan returned to the open rear door, standing just outside, not stepping in, not fully stepping away either. "Sir," he said, his voice lower now, no edge, no urgency, just acknowledgement. Chief Harris studied him for a moment, not long, but enough to measure the difference. "What changed?" the chief asked, the question direct, without build-up. Ryan did not answer immediately. He looked out toward the road where Ava's car had disappeared, then back at the chief. "I did," he said. Finally, the words simple, but this time they did not feel like an explanation, they felt like a realization. Chief Harris gave a small nod, not approving, not dismissing, just accepting the answer for what it was. "And what made that possible?" he asked. Ryan hesitated again, but not in the same way as before. This time he was searching, not avoiding. "You did not step in," he said slowly, "you let it play out." The answer surprised him as he said it, but it felt right. Chief Harris leaned back slightly, his expression unchanged. "I was already in it," he replied calmly. "Before you knew I was." Ryan absorbed that, the weight of it settling deeper than the words themselves. It meant the moment had been observed from the beginning, not just corrected at the end. It meant the assumptions had been seen in real time, not just in hindsight. That thought stayed with him, heavier now, more real. The night air felt cooler against his face, or maybe he was just more aware of it. "What you did after mattered more than what you did first," the chief continued, his voice steady. Ryan nodded once, slowly, not out of reflex, but because he understood the distinction. The mistake had been one thing, but the adjustment had been another, and both had been visible. "It does not erase it," the chief added, not harsh, not soft, just clear. Ryan felt that settle in, not as a setback, but as something honest, something that kept the moment grounded. He looked down briefly, then back up. "I know," he said quietly, the answer simple, but it held more weight than anything he had said earlier. Chief Harris watched him for another second, then shifted slightly in his seat, signaling the end of something, not the conversation entirely, but the part that needed to happen here, on this road, in this moment. "Drive," the chief said, calm, direct. Ryan stepped back, closing the rear door gently, not with force, not with hesitation, just enough to mark the transition. He walked back to his cruiser, each step steady, the gravel crunching lightly beneath his boots. He opened the driver's door and paused again, just for a second, looking out at the road ahead, empty, quiet, unchanged, but it did not feel the same as it had before, not after what had just unfolded. He got in, closed the door, and sat there for a moment, hands resting lightly on the wheel, not gripping, not tense, just present. The engine idled softly, the dashboard lights casting a faint glow across his hands. He glanced at the rearview mirror, catching a brief reflection of Chief Harris in the back seat, still composed, still watching, but not directing. Ryan turned his gaze forward again, the road stretching out. In front of him, long and open, and for the first time that night, he was not thinking about the stop he had just made, he was thinking about the next one. Ryan eased the cruiser forward, the tires rolling softly over the asphalt as he merged back onto the road, the engine humming low and steady, the night stretching out ahead in long, dark lanes. He did not turn the lights back on, he did not rush, he just drove. The silence inside the car felt different now, not empty, but full of something he was still processing. Chief Harris remained in the back seat, quiet, not giving instructions, not filling the space. That silence carried its own weight, like it expected something without asking for it. Ryan kept his hands relaxed on the wheel, not tight, not rigid, just steady. He glanced at the speedometer, then back to the road, small habits returning, but they felt different now, more intentional. The radio crackled once, then settled into a low hum, dispatch chatter faint in the background, distant, routine, but it did not pull his focus the way it usually did. What did you notice after you reset? The chief asked from the back seat, his voice calm, measured, not interrupting the drive. Just entering it, Ryan did not answer immediately, his eyes stayed on the road, watching the faint lines glide beneath the headlights. The question was not about memory, it was about awareness. She was not resisting, he said finally, his voice low, even. She was being careful. The words came out more certain than before, like they had settled into place. Chief Harris gave a small nod, barely visible in the mirror. And before that? He asked. Ryan exhaled slowly, the air leaving his chest. In a controlled release, I thought hesitation meant something else, he admitted, the sentence simple, but it held the shift that had happened. The road curved slightly ahead. Ryan adjusted the wheel with a light touch, the movement smooth, controlled, not rushed. The headlights traced the curve, revealing more empty space ahead. What made you think that? The chief asked, not pressing, just guiding. Ryan paused again, not long, but enough to search honestly this time. It was automatic, he said. I did not question it. The answer felt incomplete, but it was the truth he had in that moment. Chief Harris did not respond right away. He let the silence sit again, the hum of the engine filling the space. Ryan caught a glimpse of his own reflection in the rearview mirror, faint, framed by the darkness behind him, and for a second, it did not feel like the same person who had stepped out of the car earlier. Automatic responses are built over time, the chief said quietly. The question is what they are built from. Ryan felt that settle deeper, not as a correction, but as something that pointed backward, beyond this stop, beyond this road. He tightened his grip on the wheel slightly, then relaxed it again, noticing the movement as it happened, the awareness still new, still forming. A pair of headlights approached from the opposite direction, bright for a moment, then passing, leaving the road dim again. I did not see her, Ryan said suddenly, the realization coming out before he could filter it, his voice quieter now, but clearer. Not at first. The words hung there, more personal than anything he had said before. Chief Harris leaned forward just slightly, not enough to intrude, but enough to acknowledge the shift. What did you see? He asked. Ryan shook his head once, a small motion, almost reflexive. A situation, he said, not a person. The distinction landed fully as he spoke it, and it changed how the earlier moment felt in his memory. Ava had been present the entire time, but he had not engaged with her as she was, only as what he thought she might be. The cruiser continued down the road, steady, the line stretching out ahead without interruption. And now? The chief asked, the question soft, but direct. Ryan kept his eyes forward, but his focus shifted inward for a second, measuring the difference. Now I slow down, he said. I look again. The answer was simple, but it carried something new, something he had not brought into the moment before. The radio crackled again, this time clearer, dispatch calling another unit, routine, distant, the world moving on, unaffected by what had just happened. But Ryan did not feel the same, not in the way he held the wheel, not in the way he watched the road, not in the way he listened to the silence between words. Chief Harris settled back again, his presence steady, unchanged, but now it felt less like oversight and more like confirmation, like something had shifted in a way that did not need to be repeated. The road ahead opened up, wide and empty, and for a moment, Ryan realized that nothing around him had changed at all, except the way he was seeing it. Ryan kept driving, the road stretching out in long, quiet lines ahead, the engine steady beneath him, the headlights carving a narrow path through the dark. Nothing around him had changed, but everything inside the car felt different. The silence was no longer empty, it carried meaning now, it held the weight of what had just happened. Chief Harris remained in the back seat, still, composed, not filling the space, not rushing the moment forward. Ryan adjusted his grip on the wheel slightly, then relaxed it again, noticing the movement as it happened. That awareness stayed with him, small but constant, like a new habit forming in real time. A set of taillights appeared far ahead, moving at a steady pace, nothing unusual. Nothing urgent, but Ryan's attention lingered on it longer than it normally would, not because of suspicion, but because he was actually looking. The radio crackled softly, dispatch calling out another routine check, the voice distant, familiar, but it did not pull him away from the road. What will you do the next time you feel that assumption? Chief Harris asked, his voice calm, steady, not breaking the quiet, just entering it. Ryan did not answer right away, his eyes stayed on the road, tracking the movement of the car ahead, the way it held its lane, the way it adjusted slightly to the curve, small details that he might have ignored before. I will pause, he said finally, the words measured, deliberate, not long, just enough to see clearly. The answer felt simple, but it carried something new, something grounded. Chief Harris gave a slight nod, barely visible in the mirror. And if the moment does not give you time? He asked, not challenging, just expanding the question. Ryan thought about that, the pressure of quick decisions, the instinct to act before understanding. He had felt it earlier, he had acted on it. Then I create that space, he said, slower now, more certain, even if it is just in how I speak. The idea settled as he said it, like it had been there all along but had not been named. The road curved gently again. Ryan adjusted the wheel, smooth, controlled, the headlights sweeping across the empty lane, revealing nothing out of place, just open road. Your tone sets the direction before your actions do, the chief said quietly. People respond to that before anything else. Ryan nodded once, the truth of it clear now, not theoretical, but something he had just lived through. Ava had responded not to his commands, but to how they were given, and that had shaped everything that followed. The memory stayed with him, not sharp, not painful, but steady, like a reference point he would carry forward. The car ahead signaled and exited, leaving the lane open again, wide and empty. Ryan noticed how his focus did not jump to conclusions this time, it stayed with what was actually happening, not what might be happening. That difference felt small, but it changed how the road looked, how it felt. You will not get it right every time, the chief continued, his voice even, not soft, not hard, just real, but you will know when you are not seeing clearly. Ryan took that in, not as a warning, but as something honest, something that did not expect perfection, only awareness. He adjusted his seat slightly, the movement small, grounding, the dashboard lights reflecting faintly across his hands. I will remember this one, Ryan said quietly, almost to himself, but the words carried into the space. Chief Harris did not respond immediately. He let that statement sit, let it settle without adding to it. The radio crackled again, louder this time, dispatch calling Ryan's unit number, the tone routine, but it felt different now, like it was returning him to the work with a new frame. Ryan reached for the radio, his hand steady, not rushed. He pressed the button. Unit 12. Go ahead, he said, his voice even, clear, no edge, no weight behind it, just presence. The response came through, another call, another situation, something that would require attention, but not assumption. Ryan listened, really listened, taking in the details as they were given, not filling in the gaps before they were spoken. When the transmission ended, he released the button slowly, his eyes returning fully to the road ahead. The cruiser moved forward, steady, controlled, the night unchanged, but no longer the same, and for the first time, Ryan realized that the next stop would begin before he even turned on the lights. Ryan kept his eyes on the road, the steady hum of the cruiser filling the space between thoughts, the dispatch call still echoing faintly in his mind. Another stop, another moment waiting to happen, but it did not feel the same anymore, not like it had an hour ago. The headlights stretched across the empty highway, revealing a car parked on the shoulder up ahead, hazard lights blinking in a slow, steady rhythm, not urgent, not chaotic, just there. Ryan eased his foot off the gas slightly, not out of caution alone, but out of awareness. He watched the vehicle, the angle it sat at, the way the lights reflected off its surface. Small details, simple things, but he did not rush past them, he let them form a picture before acting. That one, Chief Harris said quietly from the back seat, not a command, just an observation. Ryan nodded once, slow, controlled, he flicked on his signal, then gently activated the overhead lights, not sharp, not aggressive, just enough to mark his presence. The red and blue reflections spread across the road again. But this time they felt different, not like pressure, not like control, just a signal. He guided the cruiser behind the parked car, leaving enough distance, enough space. The engine idled softly as he came to a stop. The moment settled in, quiet, waiting. Ryan rested his hands lightly on the wheel, not gripping, not tense, just present. He watched the car ahead, the way it sat still, the hazard lights blinking in a calm pattern. Nothing about it suggested urgency, nothing about it demanded force. He took a breath, steady, then reached for the radio. Unit 12, on. Scene, he said, his voice even, clear, no edge, no rush. The acknowledgement came back quickly, routine, expected, but it did not pull him out of the moment. He released the button slowly, his eyes returning to the car ahead. What do you see? Chief Harris asked, his voice calm, steady, not testing, just guiding. Ryan did not answer immediately. He watched, really watched, not just the vehicle, but the space around it, the absence of movement, the consistency of the lights, the stillness of the road. A stopped vehicle, he said finally, the word simple, grounded, no immediate signs of distress. He added, slower now, placing each observation carefully. Chief Harris gave a slight nod, barely visible in the mirror. And what do you not see? He asked. Ryan paused again, not because he did not know, but because he was considering it differently now. I do not see a threat, he said, the words quiet, but clear. The distinction mattered, it shaped what came next. He reached for the door handle, then stopped, just for a second, not out of hesitation, but out of intention. He adjusted his posture, grounding himself before stepping out, the habit already forming. He opened the door and stepped onto the road, the cool air meeting him, the soft crunch of gravel under his boots, the lights from his cruiser casting a steady glow behind him. But they did not define the moment, they framed it. He approached the parked car slowly, not rushed, not cautious in a fearful way, just aware, his steps even, measured. He could see a figure inside, still, not moving much, but not slumped, not panicked, just present. That detail landed first. He stopped a few feet from the window, not too close, not too far, giving space, allowing the moment to exist before entering it. He tapped lightly on the glass, not sharp, not demanding, just enough to be heard. The figure inside turned slowly, meeting his gaze. No sudden movement, no tension, just acknowledgement. Ryan felt the difference immediately, not because the situation was different, but because he was. Good evening, he said, his voice even, steady. Is everything okay? The words came naturally, not forced, not shaped by assumption. The person inside nodded slightly, reaching toward the window, the glass lowering with a soft hum, the air shifting between them, calm, open, and for a second, Ryan saw the reflection of his own face in the glass, steady, present, not searching for something that was not there, just seeing what was in front of him. The hazard lights continued their quiet rhythm, the road remained still, and the moment unfolded without resistance, without tension, without the weight he had carried before. And as the person inside began to speak, Ryan realized he was already listening differently.